Picture this. You're watching The Dating Game. It's 1978, disco music, fun times.
Yeah.
And this, well, charming bachelor is hoping to get a date. Seems pretty normal, right?
Oh, totally.
But then you find out, this bachelor, he's a serial killer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, seriously creepy. That's Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer, and, well, that's what we're diving deep into today. His crimes, how he ended up on that game show, and how justice, or maybe the lack of it, played out.
Right, right.
We dug up a ton of stuff for this one. Articles all about Alcala, stories from the dating game itself, even looked into that new movie inspired by this whole thing, Woman of the Hour.
Oh, interesting.
It really makes you think someone can seem so normal on the surface, but underneath.
Yeah, it's chilling how someone can act so normal when they've done such horrific things. And with Alcala, it wasn't just a one-time thing either. Even before that game show, his crimes were getting worse.
So, like, before we get to the game show, let's rewind. What were his early crimes like?
Okay, so his first victim, as far as we know, was a 16-year-old Morgan Rowan back in '68. She actually got away.
So it's lucky.
Yeah, but then just a week later, he grabs this 8-year-old girl, Tali Shapiro, and brutally assaults her in his apartment. It was in Hollywood, no less.
What? It's hard to imagine going from something that awful to being on TV trying to win a date. You'd think those early crimes, especially what happened with Tali Shapiro, would have been it for him.
You would think, right. I mean, those crimes put him on the FBI's most wanted list.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They eventually caught him in New Hampshire, sent him back to California. He was even convicted.
Okay, so they got him.
But, and this is where it gets truly frustrating, he only got 34 months.
Hold on. 34 months? For hurting a child like that? That's it?
Yeah, no, it's awful. There were problems with the case early on, and he played the system, got a lighter sentence. One article I read even said the court didn't know the half of what he did in New Hampshire. Just goes to show, sometimes the justice system, it doesn't work the way it should.
So he's out, back in California, after a tiny sentence. And this is where the dating game comes in.
Exactly. 1978, disco's huge. The dating game is like the show to be on, and there he is, Rodney Alcala, Bachelor #1, charming Cheryl Bradshaw, and the whole country.
Knowing what we know now, it's surreal. While there are families out there grieving, he's on TV, trying to win a date, hiding this whole other side of himself. It makes you wonder what the people on that show with him were thinking.
Totally. It's like textbook serial killer behavior, that compartmentalization, being able to separate their public face from all the darkness inside. You see it time and time again. Seemingly normal people doing the most unspeakable things.
Okay, but back to the dating game. How did he act on the show? Were there any red flags, anything that seemed off?
There are definitely some weird vibes. Other contestants, even the producer, said something wasn't right about him. Cheryl Bradshaw herself, the bachelorette who picked him, even told the producers she got bad vibes. She refused to go on the date with him.
Wow, that was a close one. Did she ever say what exactly creeped her out?
She said he was creepy and unsettling. Another contestant, Jed Mills, remembers Alcala saying backstage, "I always get my girl."
Oh, God.
It's terrifying when you think about it, how close she came to maybe being another victim. And the worst part, while he's busy charming everyone on TV, he was still out there committing crimes. Makes you wonder why even go on a show like that, the dating game, you know?
Yeah.
Was it like some kind of power thing? Trying to taunt the cops, maybe? Who knows?
It's a creepy thought for sure. And speaking of creepy, what about the victims during this time, the ones who didn't make it? Who were they?
So 2 murders happened right around that game show appearance. Cornelia Crilly and Ellen Hover. Cornelia, she was 23, a flight attendant, living in New York City. They found her in her apartment back in '71, sexually assaulted, strangled, awful.
Horrible.
And Ellen, she was 23 too. She was a regular in the New York City club scene. Vanished in '77. They didn't find her, well, her remains, for a whole year. She was on the grounds of the Rockefeller estate.
It's so sad. These women, so young, and did those cases go unsolved all that time?
Sadly, yeah. For years, decades even, their families, they had no answers, no justice. It wasn't until they had that DNA technology that they could finally say, yep, it was Alcala. And that's part of what made catching him so hard, the way he chose his victims.
What do you mean? Did he have a type or something?
A lot of times he went after women and girls who were, on the edges, maybe aspiring actresses, runaways, people who wouldn't necessarily be missed right away.
Oh, wow. I see.
It made it harder to connect the dots, sometimes even figure out who the victims were.
That's a terrifying thought. Being kind of invisible, makes you that much more vulnerable.
Exactly. And this leads us to the case that finally got him caught, though it took a while to get the final conviction. The murder of 12-year-old Robin Samso in '79.
Right, the year after the dating game.
Mm-hmm.
She was riding her bike to ballet class, right, in Huntington Beach.
Yeah, a sunny June afternoon. Just gone. Luckily, someone saw something strange. There was this woman at the beach, and she sees this guy approaching girls, asking them to pose for pictures. She had a bad feeling about him, thank God. So she snaps a picture. Turns out that picture was key.
Wow, talk about trusting your gut. Makes you think, how many times do we ignore that feeling? So, how did the photo lead to Alcala?
Well, with that picture and a few other things, they got a search warrant for his mom's house. He was living there at the time.
And that's where they've had all those photos, right? Hundreds of them.
Yeah, hundreds, mostly of young boys, girls, and women. A lot of them, they were disturbing, suggestive poses, that kind of thing.
That's bone-chilling. And to think, they still don't know who most of those people are. Those photos are all they have. It's heartbreaking.
It really is. We may never know just how many victims there really were, but there was something else in that storage locker, something that directly connected him to Robin Samso.
So they're searching his mother's house, find this massive collection of photos, and for most of them, they still don't know who those people are. What else was there? Did they find anything else connecting Alcala to Robin Samso?
They did. In that locker, there was this pair of gold ball earrings. Robin's mother, she confirmed, they were her daughters. It was a really clear link to Robin.
So they finally had him. Concrete evidence in Robin Samson's murder.
You'd think so, right? But as is the case with a lot of this story, it was just the start of this whole long, messed up legal battle.
Because this is where all the trials and appeals and everything start. Yeah. It's crazy how long it all took.
It really is. It went on forever. First, he was convicted and sentenced to death in 1980 for Robin's murder, but then that got overturned on appeal because, get this, the jury wasn't supposed to know about some of his other crimes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then it happened again in '86, another conviction, another death sentence, and overturned again in 2003. That time, it was because they couldn't really use this one witness who said they saw him at the park.
It's hard to imagine what those families went through. All those years going back, getting their hopes up, then let down.
Absolutely. It was brutal for them. But while all this was happening in the courts, forensic technology, it was changing. By the 2000s, DNA testing was a whole different ballgame.
And that's what finally connected him to those other murders in L.A., right?
Exactly. 2003, DNA links him to 4 women: Jill Barkham, Georgia Wickstead, Charlotte Lamb, and Jill Parenteau.
So many.
He finally went to trial for those murders in 2010.
After all that time, claiming to be innocent, did he ever, show any remorse at the trial?
You'd hope for a little humanity, right? Some acknowledgement of what he did, but no. Alcala, he actually chose to represent himself. And, the trial was a circus. He cross-examined the victims' families, showed the jury all these photos from trips he supposedly took, trying to prove he couldn't have been in those places when the murders happened.
Wow.
Total manipulation to the very end.
It's like something you see in a movie. A narcissist who can't deal with the truth would rather put on a show than just admit what he did. But the DNA was pretty damning.
Oh, absolutely. The jury came back guilty on all counts, death sentence again. Finally, a little bit of justice, even though it took way too long.
And like you said before, even then, it still wasn't over.
Tragically, no. After he was convicted, they linked him to even more murders with DNA, including Christine Thornton out in Wyoming. He died in prison in 2021. They were still trying to execute him. He took a lot of secrets to the grave.
It's a tough case, but important to talk about. This whole thing with Rodney Alcala, it shows how someone can seem so charming but be so evil, and how easy it is for people to slip through the cracks. We have to trust our gut and always fight for those who don't have a voice anymore.
You said it. If anyone listening wants to learn more, you should check out that movie, Woman of the Hour. It's a fictionalized take on this, but it really centers the victims, their stories. It's powerful.
Absolutely. And we'll have more info on our website, too, for anyone who wants to dig deeper. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.